I'm Reya, and I wrote the plot for GIGI'S murder mystery birthday party. However, with 13 players roleplaying over 3.5 hours, there was a lot of information out there and things could definitely get confusing. So I'm here to lay out the main plot and all of its juicy details in an easy, digestible way for you. This video is divided into 3 sections. The first 2 go over the lore and planning, primarily from the murderer's point of view, to lead up to the party. The third covers the actual game and stream and what the flow for it was intended to be. But before the lore, a small bit on how the game was run. Every player was given a character sheet. Some were very simple, others... It presented the setting of the game. 2 rival gangs in the city Hollow Drive fighting for power, and one Gigi Marine hoping to bridge the gap between them to obtain peace. Each player had a backstory and an objective, or 2, for the game. Some people had items, some had roles with abilities, and none of these were disclosed to other players to push a focus on roleplay rather than metagaming. Everyone had a list of their relationships with every other character, and most importantly, they had a section noting what they were doing during the times of 4 AM and 6 AM, which is when the trick was tampered with, which leads me to... Elizabeth. She was a Sherlock-obsessed sociopath who wanted to capture the thrills of those books for herself. She joined the gang Justice, but when the highs weren't enough, she decided to stage her own real murder party. Elizabeth knew that Gigi was having a love affair with Ina. Elizabeth also knew that Cecilia had a crush on Gigi. She used this to set Cecilia up as the primary suspect. Elizabeth told Cecilia that she could appeal to Gigi's nature by recommending renting a haunted house for her upcoming birthday party. Gigi loved the idea, and she even bought the mansion. Elizabeth also talked to Bay about Cecilia's crush and encouraged Bay to get her to confess. This led to Cecilia confessing her feelings 2 days before the party and ultimately being rejected. Meanwhile, Nerissa was in debt to Advent after sleeping with Shiori and stealing from her. Shiori had Biju hunt her down and enlist her to their gang, and she worked for them for a few years under their thumb. Elizabeth learned of her predicament and gave her an out. If Nerissa helped her execute her party and get them out alive, she would help her escape Advent, or take it over with Justice's help. Nerissa agreed. From there, duties were delegated to the members of Justice for the party. Raora was in charge of feeding the piranhas. Cecilia was in charge of making sure the key for Gigi's escape was in the tank box, and Elizabeth handled finance. Fauna, a wealthy city elite who was secretly our vigilante, funded the party. Using her money, Elizabeth bought a rusty tank, low-budget food for piranhas, sugar cubes, a very high-quality skeleton that did not arrive, by the way, and 4 sets of house keys. She gave the receipt to Gigi after buying everything, knowing she's illiterate, but she didn't know that Gigi diligently made her own copy of it and stashed it away before giving the receipt back. Elizabeth then forged a fake receipt, which she gave to Fauna, saying she bought a high-quality tank, high-quality food for piranhas, and a very high-quality skeleton that did not arrive, by the way, and 3 sets of keys to the mansion. The 3 public keys were distributed, 1 to Raora and 2 to Gigi. Gigi gave the second privately to Ina so that she could come and visit her at the mansion while she was working on her party. The 4th secret key was given to Nerissa. This happened on... Gigi went home early the night before her party. Raora stayed late at the mansion working on the final preparations for the party. Cecilia was dealing with her heartbreak, and Elizabeth comforted her and recommended a bar for her to go to drown out her sorrows. When Cecilia went there, she ran into Nerissa, who was waiting for her there on Elizabeth's orders. As a known lady killer of Advent, Nerissa used her experience on the matters of love to comfort Cecilia and drink with her, getting her wasted before sending her home at 3:30 AM. Elizabeth went out to do a hit job, bringing a body back to Raora and giving her the task of delivering it to the morgue where Iris would dispose of it for them, and instructed Raora to write up a report afterwards, attempting to deprive her of sleep and exhaust her for the next day. Elizabeth and Raora both left the mansion together at 4 AM and traveled back to the city. Raora split off to go and meet with Iris, whilst Elizabeth went to the bar to look for Cecilia. At 4:25 AM, Elizabeth met Nerissa and handed her the extra keys to the mansion. Nerissa traveled to the mansion and arrived at 4:40 AM and tampered with everything. She replaced the fish food with sugar cubes as they dissolve in water and keep the piranhas hungry. She wrote derogatory comments on the walls. She jammed the failsafe lever on the tank. She replaced the key in the box with one that wouldn't work and planted fake documents that contained threats from Advent to Justice. Bay, who was still living in the mansion, woke up at 5 AM to the noise, but she was too afraid to investigate. She tried to call Gigi and Crony, her 2 closest friends, but neither of them picked up. Nerissa left after finishing her job. and Gigi returned to the mansion at 6 a.m., making the time window for the crime between 4 a.m. when Raura and Elizabeth left the mansion and 6 a.m. when Gigi came back. Many other things occurred at this time of night with many other people, which would all be revealed at... When Gigi died, the first thing that should have been explored was, how did her trick go wrong? Justice can offer that Raura was in charge of feeding the piranhas, Cecilia was in charge of the key, and Elizabeth was in charge of the finances, aka buying the tank. Elizabeth could instantly call Fauna to show the fake receipt and prove that she bought a very high quality tank, and it wasn't her fault that the tank sucked. Raura would be very tired from working the previous night and say that the fish food is in the kitchen and she can prove she fed them. Her alibi is also airtight. She left the mansion at 4 a.m. with Elizabeth and then traveled and met Iris at 4:40 a.m. to get rid of a dead body. This exonerates both Iris and Raura and strengthens Elizabeth's position as she left with Raura, who locked the door to the mansion behind them. Cecilia was designed to be my professional victim. Forgive me, Cecilia. Players can attempt to open the tank, finding it jammed, and if they force it, then it will open and reveal the key that Gigi tried to use to unlock her binds, and find that it's whittled and unusable, which led to her death. When questioning Cecilia, she can claim it was fine yesterday, but her alibi becomes a problem for her. Two more questions remain. When did the tampering take place, and who had access to the house? For the time frame, as we said, Raura and Elizabeth can say that they left at 4 a.m. Bay can say she heard noises at 5 a.m. And Gigi returned to the mansion at 6 a.m. Gigi can also confirm this through the psychic, so we have that down. For house access, Justice knows that 3 sets of keys to the mansion exist. Raura has 1 and Gigi had 2. They don't know who has the second set, but they can assume that that person might be the culprit. It's also semi-common knowledge that Bay was living at the house, which puts her under some suspicion. Her lack of alibi should also put her on people's radars. Because she did try and call Crony and Gigi, they can confirm that she did try to reach out to them, but it's not hard evidence that she's safe. For Cecilia to defend herself, she should say that she was with Nerissa drinking at the bar, and that she got wasted and passed out for the night, which is true, but Nerissa, having planned with Elizabeth beforehand, should say that Cecilia left at 3:30 a.m. and didn't seem very drunk at all. Elizabeth should also claim that she went to go find Cecilia after leaving the mansion at 4 a.m. and went to the bar, meeting Nerissa there, and got into a fight with her. And then afterwards, she went to look for Cecilia at the Justice headquarters and her house, and she couldn't find her at either of them. This should throw shade on Cecilia that she might be lying. It also removes her alibi and makes it possible that she could have been the culprit for the crime. She should be the person with the highest suspicion at this point in the story. There is also backstory between Cecilia and Fauna. When Fauna was younger, Cecilia was a maid for her family. Fauna believed that they were very close friends at that time. In Justice, Cecilia works as a political savant who dances her way through the social elite to work them into supporting their gang. Fauna comes from the wealthiest family in Hollow Drive, and Cecilia was sent to work under them and find a way to manipulate them. However, a police investigation exposed Cecilia and she had to abandon Fauna's family. She avoided Fauna especially ever since. Fauna went through the police system as a result after being involved in a crime that Cecilia committed before being found innocent and having her family bail her out. She grew embittered and pursued vigilante work to deal justice herself. When she got the opportunity to fund Gigi's party through Crony, she took the chance because she wanted to see how Cecilia was doing, and if she judged her to be evil, then she wanted to kill her herself. This is meant to encourage her to hound Cecilia in the game and make Cecilia more uncomfortable and unable to defend herself. Now, the first round of the game is intended to get as much information out as possible, with the second part of the game leaving room for people to sort out said information and match it to people's claims to figure out who's lying or not. In the kitchen, players would discover the fish food was replaced with sugar cubes, which would not have been suitable as food. However, some would be missing, proving Raura did feed them. She just made a mistake due to exhaustion. Raura's character was meant to serve as a tutorial for alibis and evidence. If players chose to explore the kitchen, they would also find a custom tea in the cupboards that seemed to have been made especially for Gigi, with her name on the packaging. With intentional roleplay, they could find out that Ina smells like tea, as Ina used to own a tea shop, and she's the one that made this gift for Gigi due to their ongoing love affair. In the bedroom, if players chose to explore, they would find that it is very much lived in by Bay, although that's not meant to be a revelation at this point. In the fireplace, however, is a letter from Cecilia to Gigi with a confession of love. It was thrown there to burn, but due to a mistake it survived. This reveal gives a motive to Cecilia. Players should be able to figure out that she was rejected due to how the letter was discarded, and and Cecilia's interactions with Gigi in the lobby can help that too. Suddenly, she has no alibi and a reason for killing Gigi, anger over her rejection. In the study, players can find Gigi's will on the desk. It reveals that in the event of Gigi's death, she leaves the entire mansion to BDAY. Raora organized writing it for her, so she would be aware of its existence. BDAY now has a motive, to kill Gigi to get the mansion and potentially sell it for money. However, some players know that BDAY was being allowed to live in the mansion anyway, so it shouldn't be entirely convincing. It would be a massive greed play, and people should know that BDAY was a good person. Now, the library is filled with both red herrings and the key to ending the game. On the floor are forged files from Advent to Justice, threatening them with violence, as a means for anyone who wants to push the Justice vs. Advent angle to do so. There's a flashlight, which reveals UV paint on the walls as well. When used in the library, it would reveal the word hussy, which was intended to incriminate Cecilia further, painting her as a bitter reject who thought Gigi must be sleeping with other people if she wouldn't want to be with her. This should have been further enforced as evidence after people found out about Ina's relationship with Gigi. For the real evidence, if people interact with the bookcase, then they would have found a hidden compartment with a small box that Gigi put in there. Inside it is a live rat, which I added because I found funny, and a key with a code on it. This code unlocks some final evidence at the end of the game. The final room is a very large bathroom. If the flashlight is used here, it reveals the word wench on one of the mirrors. More importantly, there's a purple lipstick kiss on the mirror that came from Ina. If Ina was in the room at the time, then she would be identified out loud. But if not, then players would be allowed to study it, and would be notified in the next lobby of who they noticed to be wearing that lipstick. At that point, the lights go off and people return to the lobby to share all that they've learned together, as well as the first murder occurring. I intended for Ina's plotline to be the main subject of discussion for this lobby, as it was the most recent development in the latest room. Players would be notified that they identify the lipstick, and then they would call her out. The kiss reveals that she had access to the mansion, and she would have had to have had defended herself. How did she get in? Why do people not know who she is? So on, so on. This puts her in a hard situation, as her character and secondary win condition restrict her from revealing her love affair with Gigi, so she would have had to have been secretive about it the entire game. But at this point, she can be forced to reveal her alibi, which is that she was out delivering blackmail money at 4:30 AM to someone anonymously threatening her. She has the note on her, which she can reveal. The person threatening her was Bijou. Ina met Bijou at her tea shop and made friends with her. Bijou set her up with her sibling, and then that sibling later died. Ina went into hiding, and Bijou threatened and paid Crony to break her moral code and sell her information on Ina. Crony investigated her, finding out that she had 4 other dead exes before Bijou's sibling. Crony then threatened Bijou back to never reveal that she had done this job for her, as it would destroy her reputation. Later, when Gigi met Ina and encouraged her to live life again, Bijou started blackmailing her until the present day. Whilst Bijou can't talk about her involvement with Crony, she can push the information about Ina's exes to try and incriminate her, as Gigi has now been added to the list as the 6th dead ex. Iris, as the cop, also has information that the police had investigated Ina in the past for having ties to a lot of dead people. However, Bijou can also confirm Ina's alibi, as she did leave the blackmail money out at 4:30 AM, and Bijou collected it at 5 AM. This exonerates them both, which is also effective if people were giving Bijou heat for the documents in the library. Bijou's secondary win condition involves not revealing that she blackmailed Ina, so she is put in a hard place with how to handle this. It's meant to make things vague enough that Ina still looks suspicious, depending on what's revealed. The most important thing, however, is that after Ina is called out and has to air her secrets, she can now openly admit that when she was delivering the blackmail money, she saw Nerissa heading towards the mansion. Suddenly, the focus of the game should switch from Ina to Nerissa, and since Elizabeth's alibi was partly with Nerissa, it should also make her seem a little less concrete. Since Nerissa was the main person making Cecilia seem suspicious too, her being incriminated now also makes Cecilia seem more in the clear. Now, in the game, I had 2 information gathering roles: the cop, Iris, and the pickpocket, BDAY. The cop can check a player every round to see if they've used their ability at all in the entire game, and the pickpocket can see what items someone has on them. The intent for these was to help confirm people's innocence. If the cop reveals no ability used, they know that that person hasn't done anything potentially shady. If the pickpocket finds no weapon, then there's also no way they could be the murderer. I had wanted them to use these on the most suspicious players. For example, Ina has no role ability, but she has the keys to the mansion. If checked at any point, people would have been able to use that to push her for information. Similarly, Cecilia has no roll ability and no weapon item, so checking her would clear her. Nerissa, on the other hand, has the ability to lock rooms to stop people moving to them during rounds, and has a set of keys, which would have both flagged to both roles that she is guilty or suspicious in some way. At the end of the lobby, players would be made to put up someone they think is suspicious. This is voted on, and then that player has 2 minutes to defend themselves. After that, everyone votes anonymously on whether to kill them or spare them. The results of the vote are published after, which can help give evidence on who might be suspicious. After this lobby, the second round would get players in private rooms with each other and figure out information without chaos. When they return to the lobby again with another player dead, an event would trigger where a tile under the rug in the lobby is dislodged by the tank falling apart, revealing a box with a code lock. If the flashlight was used in the lobby, it would also find a message saying "Go to hell" with an arrow pointing downwards towards the floor. Whilst this was unintentional by Nerissa, who left the message, it's a double hint by me towards the box being underneath them. However, whoever found the key in the library with the code on it can use the code to open the box. Inside it is Gigi's treasure. Now, Gigi had broadcast the existence of her treasure before the event, and that she would be hiding it at her party. Bijou found out about it, and it's why she reached out to Gigi to have Advent come to her party in the first place. She was intent on getting her treasure. The treasure is revealed to be Gigi's birthday merchandise, by now, but the box also holds a love letter to Ina from Gigi, hinting at a proposal. Finally, the copy of the real receipt that Gigi made is in this box, revealing all of the dodgy items that Elizabeth bought, as well as the extra set of keys. This should fully incriminate Elizabeth and blindside her as she didn't know of the receipt's existence. She should try her best with Nerissa to point fingers at other players. Bae was never fully safe and didn't have an alibi. Bijou is from Evil Advent and has been holding Nerissa in debt and definitely came here to kill Gigi. Ina killed all her exes and definitely killed Gigi too. Even if people were exonerated by alibis or other facts, it's easy to stir chaos in a large group of people. However, people should refocus and put up Elizabeth to kill her. At this point, I wanted it to be known that Elizabeth also had an accomplice. People should figure out that it was Nerissa and kill her too, due to the evidence of her being spotted going to the mansion. If any player directly shone the flashlight on Nerissa as well, then we intended to reveal that she had UV paint on her fingers from where she was drawing on the walls. It can also be realized that she had the extra set of keys from when she met with Elizabeth the night before, which they both confirmed to have happened. When it came to Elizabeth, it was meant to be a few small things that people realized looking back that makes her look suspicious. She gave Raora the body disposal job to get her out of the mansion and give a time frame for Nerissa to tamper with the trick. She also then overworked Raora with a write-up due that day to deprive her of sleep and have her make mistakes on the day of the party. She manipulated Cecilia to make Gigi acquire the mansion, in an alone and deserted place where a murder could happen uninterrupted. She also manipulated Bae to get Cecilia to confess her feelings, knowing she'd be rejected in order to set her up to look suspicious. And for both of those, she stayed one step removed to not seem like she was puppeteering everything. This was to be the natural conclusion of the game if everything went perfectly. Of course, nothing is ever that simple, and there's a lot of fun for me in seeing how it plays out whilst live. For the other characters not mentioned, they were mostly there to provide support in terms of alibis, information, and relationships to create drama and interest. Crony knew a lot of people's secrets, but she couldn't say them due to her status as a trusted person, so she had to poke people in the right directions. Mume and Shiori were competitive business rivals, being a fortune teller and psychic respectively. Iris and Callie were daughter and dad, where Iris was meant to be afraid that Callie might leak her identity as an undercover cop the entire time, whilst Callie believed she was part of a fun murder mystery party with a bunch of actors. Overall, I think all of the character lore got explored for the most part, and everyone played their parts in such fun ways. There were so many memorable moments, and it was so gratifying to witness people having fun with my story. Thank you to everyone that tuned in and watched, and if there's anything anyone else is interested in hearing about, then feel free to ask. Thanks again to Gigi for asking me to work with you, and shoutouts to the amazing team I got to work with. Bones, Vani, Ori, and Kani, you're all amazing. Much love and happy birthday, Gigi!